Welcome to Mythology Matters, where ancient narratives unfold a profound connection between history, mythology, and theology. Breaking the taboo. Why dark magic is not evil? Breaking the taboo. Society has long conditioned us to fear the shadows, equating darknesses with moral decay and light with absolute virtue. But what if this binary is merely a tool for a social control? In this exploration, we strip away the cinematic tropes to reveal the philosophical art of the left-hand path. Dark magic is not pursuit of malice, but a journey toward radical autonomy. The integration of the Janjani shadow and the refusal to outsource one's sovereignty to external gods. It is time to stop fearing the depths and start understanding the power of the void. Thank you all to all the viewers and seekers of hidden truth. Your willingness to challenge deep-seated taboos and engage with the uncomfortable is what keeps philosophy alive and evolving. Thank you for walking this path with me. Chapter 1. The spectrum of intent. Beyond the binary of light and dark. The human psyche as an ancient, reflexive habit of equating darkness with evil and light with good. This dualism is a survival mechanism etched into our evolutionary history. For our ancestors, light brought safety, clarity, and the ability of hunt, while darkness hid predator and the unknown. However, when applied to the philosophical and metaphysical realms of magic, defined here as the exercise of will to affect change in consciousness or reality, this binary becomes a reductive cage that stifles true understanding. To break the taboo of dark magic, we must first dismantle the linguistic and moral monopoly held by the light. The aesthetic of morality. Historically, what we label as white magic or the right-hand path is simply magic that aligns with the social status quo. It is the magic of preservation, healing, and social cohesion. It seeks to maintain the nature order or natural order, and often demands the submission of the individual ego to higher collective or divine power. Conversely, dark magic or the left-hand path is defined by its transgressive nature. It is the magic of individual, the shadow, and the dissolution of boundaries. The primary philosophical fallacy that has dominated Western thought for 2 millennia is the belief that stagnation, light, is inherently better than destruction, dark. In any biological or stellar system, entropy and destruction are prerequisites for new life. The forest fire is dark to the trees it consumes, but it is light to the sampling that requires the cleared ash and sunlight to grow. By demonizing the dark aspect of this cycle, we essentially demonize the engine of change itself. The shadow and the source, a Janjan reframing. From Janjan perspective, dark magic is not descent into villainy, but is a courageous integration of the shadow. Carl Jung posited that the shadow consists of all the traits, impulses, and desires that we deem unacceptable and repress into our subconscious by labeling these aspects: aggression, low ambition, carnal desire, and deep grief as evil. We don't make them disappear. Instead, we relegate them to basement where they faster eventually manifesting as genuine, uncontrolled malevolence. True dark magic is a refusal to ignore the basement of the soul. It operates on the three core principles that challenge standard morality. Power is amoral. Like electricity, magic willpower does not have conscience. It has a direction. A knife can be used by a surgeon to save or a murder to kill. The knife remains a tool. The taboo as a tool, by engaging with what society deems forbidden, the practitioner breaks the mental conditioning and slave morality. As Nietzsche called it, that limits human potential. The sovereignty of the ego, where the light seeks to dissolve the self into the infinity, the dark seeks to sharpen the self into permanent, independent entity. The necessity of the void. We often fear the dark because it represents the void, the absence of structure. Yet, the void is the source of all potential. In the vacuum of space, particles pop in and out of existence. In the dark of the womb, life is knit together. When a practitioner engages in dark magic, they are often reaching into this unformed chaos to pull out something new. This is inherently subversive because it bypasses the established light. Channels of prayer, petitioning, and social permission. It is the ultimate act of self-reliance to the gatekeepers of morality. Self-reliance without their oversight is the greatest sin of all. Analysis. The political function of the taboo. The evil rebel attached to the dark magic is at its heart a political tool. Throughout the Middle Ages and the Inquisition, dark magic was the label applied to the practices of the marginalized, the village wise woman, the indigenous shaman, and the political dissident. By defining the dark as inherently harmful, the dominant religious and social structures ensured that any power derived outside of their hierarchy was viewed by suspicion. Breaking the taboo, therefore, is not an invitation to cruelty. It is an act of intellectual and spiritual decolonization. It is the reclamation of the right to explore the full spectrum of the human experience, from the blinding heights of ecstasy to the fertile, silent depths of the abyss. Chapter 2. The sovereignty of the self, the ethical case for the left-hand path. If we strip away the Gothic tropes, the scars, the incense, and the cinematic ritual, what remains at the core of dark magic is radical autonomy. While right-hand path, RHP, philosophies often emphasize the phrase, they will be done submission to a higher power, cosmic karma, or preordained social order. The left-hand path, LHP, asserts a singular defiant counterclaim: my will be done. To understand why this is not evil, we must examine the ethics of self-ownership. In most modern moral systems, putting the self first is seen as a definition of narcissism or narcissism. However, in the philosophy of the dark, the deification of the self is seen as the only honest response to an indifferent universe. The ethics of influence versus the myth of harmlessness. The most common argument against dark magic is that it is manipulative. Critics argue that seeking to influence the world or the other people to suit one's desire is a violation of cosmic ethics. This critique, however, is built on a myth of harmlessness. We live in a world of constant, non-stop psychics and social manipulation. Consider the following. Marketing. Companies use colors, theory, and psychological trigger to magically compel you to spend money. In marketing, companies use color theory and psychological triggers to magically compel you to spend money. Politics. Leaders use rhetoric and symbolism to alter the collective consciousness of a nation. Interpersonal dynamics. Even the act of dressing well for an interview is a form of a grammar, an attempt to manipulate the perception to the interviewer to achieve a specific outcome. The practitioner of the left-hand path simply stop pretending that they are not participating in this game. Dark magic is a transition from being an unconscious victim of influence to being a conscious wielder of it. It is a rejection of the spiritual bypass, the tendency to use light language to mask one's actual desire for power, sex, or security. The heavy burden of absolute responsibility. The ethical pivot of dark magic lies in absolute responsibility. Ironically, dark magic can be more ethically demanding than light magic because of its lack of safety net. The light path strategy. If practitioner of light magic fails to achieve a result, or if their actions lead to suffering, they can find a refuge in God's will, divine timing, or karmic relations. The responsibility is externalized. The darker path strategy. If a practitioner of dark magic fails, or if their action causes unintended ripple effects, the butterfly effect or causality, the burden is theirs alone. There is no divine scapegoat. There is no karmic debit that can be paid off in the next life. There is only the consequence in this one. This creates a rigorous, almost cold, ethical framework. It requires the practitioner to become their own judge and jury, weighing the cost of their ambition against the reality of their power. It is a philosophy for the spiritual adult who no longer need a apparent God to tell them what is right. The alchemy of pain and transgression. Dark magic recognizes a truth that the toxic positivity of much New Age right magic ignores. Evolution is born of friction. The light provides comfort and stasis, but the dark provides the necessary discomfort that forces growth. philosophical pillar, right hand path, light, left hand path, dark, primary goal union with the divine dissolution of the self-deification of the self-individuation view of nature, a sacred garden to be tended and obeyed, a wildness to be mastered and understood, social stance conformity and compassion individualism and transgression source of authority scripture, tradition or external data, the individual and person experience. Reclaiming is adversary. To break the taboo, we must re-examine the archetypal villains of the darker path. In Western mythology, the ultimate darker magician is the figure of Prometheus or Lucifer. From LHP perspective, these are not figures of malice, but of liberation. Prometheus stole fire from the gods to give to humanity. To the gods, the established order, he was a criminal and a bringer of chaos. To humanity, he was a spark of civilization. Lucifer, the light bringer, represents the indirect rebellion against blind obedience. These archetypes teach us that evil is often just a label used by those in power of describe those who seek to empower themselves. When a marginalized person uses dark means to claim their sovereignty, the establishment calls it a dark magic. When the establishment uses the same mean to keep that person in their place, they call it justice or the law. The black frame individuation, the ultimate goal of the left-hand path, is what many call the black frame, the spark of individual consciousness that refuses to be extinguished or absorbed back into the all. Whereas the Buddhist of the Christian mystic seek to become one with the universe, a form of spiritual ego death, and the darker magician seek to become a permanent, independent inhabitant of the universe. This is the ultimate transgression, the refusal to die. Even spiritually, it is a belief that the individual self is not an illusion to be overcome, but a masterpiece to be perfected. It's the integration of the whole, The taboo against the darker persists because the dark is where our true power hides. Society teaches us to fear our darker impulses because those impulses are often the ones that lead us to question authority, demand our worth, and refuse to be submissive. Darker magic is not about hurting others. It's about refusing to hurt yourself by repressing your own nature. It is courageous exploration of the hidden half of human experience. It is evil only to those who profit from your fear of your own reflection. When we stop viewing the dark as a moral failing and start viewing it as a psychological and spiritual frontier, we find that the most important transformation occur not in the blinding, starry sun, but in the fertile silent and the sovereign dark of the self. We conclude not with a descent into malice, but with an ascent into self-mastery. To embrace the dark is to recognize that true alignment cannot exist without the integration of the abyss. By breaking the taboo, we reclaim that the tools of change, desire, and radical responsibility from the hands of those who would use fear to keep us compliant. The left-hand path is a lonely road, yet it is the only one that leads to a self-defined throne. Remember, The stars are only visible because of the vast, uncompromising dark that holds them. Uncompromising dark that holds them. Thank you for venturing into the depth with me. To the thinkers, the rebels, and the brave souls willing to question the fundamental fabric of morality, your curiosity is the spark that ignites transformation. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to comment. Thank you for watching. Until next time, or we shall meet in our new video. Thank you. Bye-bye.